Siftach for coffee and Kabbalah. Parsha Vayigash is the second last day of Hanukkah. Tonight we're lighting 8 Zot Hanukkah. And we are in the second last Parsha of the Chumash. Yeah.
No, I was waiting. Sorry.
Let us dedicate today's learning. Who are you waving? Yeah.
This is my birthday.
Happy birthday, Regina! Oh my goodness, happy birthday. Wow, l'chaim, to long, healthy years and gesund. And we're also going to dedicate today's learning to my dear friend Rachel and Itai Levy's brother. I just blinked on his name. You know his name? His neshama should have an aliyah. I'll put it in the description. You know Rachel and Itai Levy?
I tutor their kids.
Yeah, so his brother was killed in the war, and he's getting up from Shiva tomorrow. Itai's brother, yeah, from Dagan.
They're sitting, leaving.
They're not sitting here. They're sitting in Shom Yama. Yeah. You know Rachel Levy, right? So Itai's brother was killed last week. So to his neshama, to Hashem comforting his family, and comforting all of Am Yisrael, to all the fallen soldiers, and to the safe return of the hostages and all of the chayalim. And today's learning, the Rebbe said that through rebuilding, you'll be comforted. So through adding and building more and adding more light, we'll be able to comfort the families. Parsha in a nutshell. Okay, so Vayigash. Vayigash means, and he approached. Who approached who? This is the pinnacle moment. We skipped last week because of Hanukkah, but last week is when the brothers come down to Egypt from Mitzrayim. Yosef interprets Paro's 2 dreams. He rises to power. Paro has dreams about the famine. Now there's a famine. It's not only hit Egypt, but all of the countries. And Egypt's the only one with food because of Yosef's interpretation of the dream, which was this crazy interpretation that said that because there was 7 fat cows standing at the same time as 7 skinny cows, what does that mean they're at the same time? How could you have famine and hunger at the same time? That was Paro's real question about the dreams. Because the people said, yeah, you could have famine and hunger. He said, you can't have famine and hunger at the same time. That doesn't make sense. So Yosef said, no, you could, because if you are already storing food during the plenty, you could have famine and hunger at the same time. You can't have plenty and famine at the same time. If during the 7 years of plenty you're already storing the food, then you're living with the hunger already in mind. And then during the hunger, you'll have all the food you stored during the plenty. So that way, you are having the plenty during the times of famine. And therefore, Egypt was the only one who had plenty of food. Yosef would take food. Everyone was forced to give tons of their food. They had storehouses of food. And now, last week's Parsha comes that moment where there's a famine in Canaan, and Yaakov sends his sons down to Egypt to get food. They come to get food from Yosef. Yosef they don't know who he is. Yosef takes Binyamin as a prisoner, and because he hid the goblet and Binyamin's cup, etc. And now Yehuda says, no way. Rachel has 2 sons. Yosef was killed, and there's no way you could take Binyamin also. My father he'll die from the news. So the Yigash is Yehuda approaching Yosef to battle him or to confront him, to say, take me instead of Binyamin. There's no way you could take Binyamin. And that's that moment, and finally he pleads for the release of Binyamin, offering himself as a slave instead of Binyamin. And when he sees their loyalty to one another, Yosef finally can't handle it. He reveals his identity to them. He says, Ani Yosef ha'oda bichai, the famous words, is my father is still alive. And then he again says, I am Yosef, the one that you sold to Egypt. They're overcome by shame and remorse. They can't even speak. They're so embarrassed and ashamed. But Yosef comforts them and says the famous words, Lo, it wasn't you who shlachani, it wasn't you who sent me, it was Hashem who sent me here, because if I wouldn't end up here, you would have all died from the famine. So it was all planned from Hashem so that I can be here to save you. They run back to their father with the news, and Yaakov comes down to Egypt with the rest of all the Jewish family, the 70 souls, and he's reunited with Yosef after 22 years. On his way to Mitzrayim, he gets the promise from Hashem, do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, because I'll make you into a great nation, just like you promised Avram and Yitzchak before him, and I will also take you out. You will leave Mitzrayim. Now Yosef gathers all of the wealth, pretty much, of the world, because this is like the Kabbalistic side of this is that the Torah continues and says that all of the wealth of the world was gathered into Mitzrayim because no one has food, so they're all giving all of their money, and Mitzrayim becomes the wealthiest nation in the world. And this is really like the purpose of going down to Mitzrayim. The Kabbalistic side of it, the Hasidic approach, is that the purpose of going down is that that you go down to Egypt. We're going to have this theme going out throughout Shemot. So this is where it's happening now, that we're going to go down to Egypt so that you can leave with tremendous rechush, which is wealth, which doesn't only mean physical wealth, because then we would say, let's just skip the years of slavery and death and not come out with the riches and wealth, but rather within the physical wealth, hidden in the physical wealth, is the sparks of godliness that we were sent to this world to elevate, to reveal in. So the ultimate intention Hashem is telling Yaakov is you're going to go down in order that you can take out this spiritual wealth with you, the wealth that's hidden in the materialism, this wealth of the sparks of godliness found in the materialism. And this is where the reason, if going back to like the pre-Kabbalah, like the purpose of the world was that there's 88 sparks of godliness hidden in the physical, trapped in physical possessions. And Hashem made it easy for us to gather it by making the famine and having Egypt, Yosef, be the ruler to basically funnel, I like this word, all of the wealth of the world, so all of the sparks of godliness, the majority of the wealth of the world ended up being funneled down into Egypt to make it easy for us to gather the sparks. Because the rest of the world has no food, we sell them the food, they give us all their money. Now most of the money of the world is now in Egypt. If kind of like the plan was that we now have all of these sparks of Kedusha that we need to elevate the world and bring Mashiach and bring back to the realm of Kedusha, and then Mashiach comes, that they're all in Egypt. Through being down in Egypt, we gather, we leave with all of the wealth, which is the purpose. We take the physical wealth with us, which contains within it the sparks of divinity, and then we elevate it, we go to Matan Torah, we get the Torah, and then somehow Mashiach comes, but obviously we keep messing it up, and things happen to delay that over and over and over again. But that's the ultimate plan. So this is like the deeper idea of why it was important to know that there was a famine, and why it was important for all the money in the world to come down to Egypt so that we can now be in the possession of the Jewish people when we leave 210 years later, right? Okay, that was a side thing. Now Paro gives Yaakov's family the fertile county of Goshen to settle, to establish a yeshiva, to learn Torah, and the Jewish people are prospering in this Egyptian exile. They're not exiled yet, but they're prospering here, and that's the end of the parsha. Now, we're going to focus today a little bit on the deeper idea of the conflict between Yosef and his brothers, what it's really based on in a Hasidic way, and not in the world, and views in the outlook on life and the purpose of existence, and in our own soul as well, in our neshama. What is this going on? So we learned that the conflict between Yosef and his brothers is way deeper than just the father loved Yosef more, and they were jealous of the coat that he got. It is actually a fundamental difference on how we deal, what we're here in this world to do. And so the brothers' approach to life was continuing what Avram and Yitzchak did, and even Yaakov a little bit, which was to be shepherds. They felt that we are here in this physical world where there's hell and a lot of hiddenness of God, and the way that we can connect to Hashem the most is if we're shepherds. By being a shepherd, we can totally disconnect and distance ourselves from all of the challenges and the struggles of money and people and engaging with all the evil in the world. There's so much evil nations. Let's just isolate ourselves and be shepherds. Like when I was teen, I was like, I want to be a shepherd. Imagine just being like one with nature all day. Like you don't have to deal with anyone in the world, right? Just animals, no people, no conflict, just you, Hashem, and nature. And that is why the choice vocation for all of the Avos and all of the brothers was to be a shepherd, because it afforded them the opportunity to just staven and connect with Hashem and be distant from all of the darkness of the world that was in Haran and the crazy, depraved society that was pervading the world. It was a very, very bad world with pagan people doing horrible things, sacrifice, right, horrible things happening. And they're like, we don't want anything to do with that. Let's be shepherds, go to the mountains, and that way we can connect with Hashem, and which is the ultimate purpose, to be able to connect with Hashem and ignore all that noise. And Yosef was like a trailblazer, and he was like, no, that's not why we're here. That's not why God made the world. We're not here to disconnect from the world and be isolated and be shepherds. We're here to engage with the world, to engage in the darkness. And the brothers fought that. And so Yosef was fighting that. Yosef was trying to bring a new reality into this world and to say, no, Hashem wants us to fully engage with the world, to be involved with the world, involved with all of the struggles, with the depraved societies, with the money, with the struggles of relationships, and being out there in the darkness. And the brothers are like, no, that's really dangerous. And this kind of like this conflict echoes now. There's Jews that feel like we need to live in a bubble, in a religious community, learn all day, not engage with the world, keep ourselves in a bubble. And then there's Jews who are like, no, we need to enter the world, right? We have this like just tension of like, what do we do with the world? Because both sides have validity, right? When we enter the world. And so in Chabad, obviously the approach is to go out into the world and not be afraid of the darkness, and to bring light and bring fire into the darkest places, which was what Hanukkah is all about. But it's a very valid question. In fact, like the Rambam even says, like to be a place of from community, so that you can like hold on to your values. So many people are wondering, like, how do you expect a Chabad shaliach or any Jew to go out to the darkest place and not be overcome by darkness and fully be absorbed and influenced in a negative way. That we'll lose all Jews. If all Jews move to the darkest places, they'll be influenced, they'll assimilate. And so simulation is a real concern. So how do we prevent ourselves from assimilating a swimming pool? I think the mashal is given as even if you're boiling hot, if you jump into a freezing cold pool or freezing cold, right, then it's going to cool you off no matter how fiery you are, no matter how burning you are. You're going to eventually, you're one and the pool is freezing. So how are you not going to get cooled off? And I think the Rebbe once said this mashal, or somebody, that yes, but if you're plugged in, I mean, this is probably dangerous, but if you're like a pool heater and you're plugged into your source, then even if you're smaller than the whole pool, you're not only going to not be cooled off at the pool, but you're going to end up heating up the entire pool around you. And so it's if you continue to be plugged into your source. If you're not plugged into your source, you jump in, you're burning hot, you get immediately cooled off. But if you continue to be plugged into your source, like the pool heater, or to your source of warmth and heat, then you're going to eventually not only be influenced, but keep eating. So as Chabad Shlichim, our message was you have to always stay plugged into your source, right? You have to inspire yourself every day. You have to learn Chassidut and learn Torah and be plugged in. Because if you're not plugged in, then yes, you start to be assimilated. And when you realize, and that happened sometimes when I was like a teenager on Shlichus, I'm like, oh wow, this stuff is so fun. Like, let me start doing that stuff. And then I'm like, oh, when I see that happening and I don't feel bright inside, I'm like, oh, let me re-plug in to what am I here for, to my mission, to who I am at my core. Let me re-plug into my core, and then I become fire and light up those around me. And that's how it's possible for thousands of Chabad Shlichim to literally be a single-handed lighting up so much darkness around them and not be influenced, overly influenced by their environment. And so that was just like a tangent, but that was Yosef's approach, and the brothers, which were so opposite, that they hated him for that. They were afraid of him. They were like, what you're doing is dangerous. It's going to cause a simulation. You cannot allow us or change Judaism or change our connection to Hashem to be engaged in the darkest places, to go down to these places. We're going to assimilate. Look, like Shem, look what happened, right? Like they wanted to assimilate us. This is dangerous. Stay away from that. And so what they were really fighting over with Yosef was this core value of how we retain our connection to Hashem in Galu, in a dark world, in a world that is against God, in a world that is so evil. How do we retain it? And they fought Yosef in this, and that was like the dream of Yosef in a way. Yosef had this vision of portraying his vision of how it could look, and we could have a world where we could be involved in the world and retain our connection to Hashem. And they're like, that's crazy dreams. Look at this dreamer coming towards us. You're just a crazy dreamer that can't exist. And we go back to Yaakov now, and we learn that Yaakov favored Yosef not because he loved he loved him more, but because Yaakov understood that this was the true path to serving Hashem. This is why Hashem made the world, and the reason for in Chassidut and Kabbalah for why Hashem made the world is to make a dira b'tachtonim, to make a home for Hashem in the darkest places. If we don't go to the lowest, darkest places, if we isolate from it, how can we bring God there? And so the purpose he recognized, and Yaakov knew this, was that Yaakov recognized the value in not being secluded, in knowing that our purpose of creation is that instead of being afraid that the world will drown us or overpower us with their darkness, that we should be a pillar of light to brighten up that darkness. That's why we're here. That's why Hashem put every one of us in this world, to go to the darkest places, literally light a candle, and then you see that you have a dark room and you light one candle and the darkness disappears. We're here to be those things. So Yaakov's favoritism was seeing that the ultimate mission and Hashem's intention for the world was to do exactly what Yosef sought to do, and exactly what Yosef was looking to do, which was to completely and totally engage with the world around us, conquer it, and be a pillar and a flame of light, and to set the entire world on fire with the fire of warmth and the fire of Hashem. And this goes back to now Yaakov seeing Yosef as his direct continuation. So if you go back one or two parshios, I think in Vayeshev, there's a pasuk that says, "Ve'ela told us Yaakov." These are the children of Yaakov. Yosef haya ben Shvas Shana. Yosef was 17 years old. Now the Medrash says, what do you mean? These are in Parshas Vayeshev. El tells Yaakov, Yosef. He says, shouldn't have said he did the children of Yaakov, Reuven. Reuven was the first child. Why Yosef? Because Yosef was a direct continuation of Yaakov. Just like it said, Elah told us Abraham, Yitzchak, right? These are who was the direct continuation of the progeny of Abraham's mission in life was Yitzchak, and Yitzchak's continuation was Yaakov. So too here we have that Yaakov's direct continuation was specifically through Yosef. Yaakov, we learned, going back a little bit, we may mention this, was different than Avos. Avram and Yitzchak stayed in Eretz Yisrael. They sheltered themselves. They were shepherds. And Yaakov was the first one to recognize that it actually says this in this medrash, to actually leave and go down to Charon, which represents going down from the spiritual place of like seclusion into Charon af olam, into anger, fiery, anti-God place. He went down into Haran, and over there he made a family. Over there he got married. And Yaakov, and obviously he came back to Eretz Yisrael because the purpose was to bring everyone back. But his recognition was that we need to bring Hashem, not just stay in our bubble and care for us, but we need to bring Hashem down into the darkest places. And that was Parshas Vayetze. Vayetze was that Yaakov was different than his fathers. Was he took that mission even further, and he said, I need to go away. Vayetze, he left, was the journey of every neshama leaving our secluded bubble in Gan Eden before we come down to this world, to come down into Charan af olam, to come into this dark world, to pave light and to bring a light and to bring Hashem into the darkest places. And so that was who Yaakov embodied. And we're going to get in even deeper. But the Medrash continues and says, why does it say Reuven but why doesn't it say Reuven? Ella mal tamad lomar Yosef, ella shekol ma she'ira lezeh ir lezeh. This is really cool. It says everything that happened to Yaakov happened to Yosef. So Yaakov saw Yosef as like continuing my life, as like a reflection of me. It says actually that Mazelon nolad mahol, he was born circumcised. Also, he was born circumcised. Mazet, his mother was Akara, was barren. His mother was barren, infertile. Right, Yaakov's mother Rivka waited many years, and also Rachel waited many years. Ima Yalda Shanim, just like his mother had him at a later age, his mother had him at a later age. He was a bechor. He was a bechor to his mother. Even though it's funny because Yaakov was like earned the bechoros. He acquired it. It continues. Yaakov's brother hated him. Yosef's brother hated him. Yaakov's brother hated him. Yosef's brother hated him. It continues the Medrash. His brother wanted to kill him. Esav wanted to kill Yaakov. Yosef's brother wanted to kill him. He was a shepherd. Well, also Yosef was initially a shepherd as well. And Yaakov, even though he went down in the world, was also a shepherd in Haran. What did he do? He was still a shepherd, and we'll get to that in a moment. It continues. He was robbed. He was wealthy. Yaakov got wealth from the sheep, and Yosef got wealth from Mitzrayim. Every single thing that goes through their entire life. He left. This is the interesting part. Yaakov left Eretz Yisrael to go to Haran, also to escape his brothers, the evil of his brothers. And Yosef had to leave Eretz Yisrael to escape his brothers. He married a woman from outside of Israel, and he married a woman outside of Israel, both of them. And this is where he raises children outside of Eretz Yisrael, and he raises children outside L'chutz La'aretz. He had angels accompany him, and he had angels accompany him. And it continues, and it goes literally. He became great through a dream. Yaakov became great through the dream of the ladder. Yosef became great through his dream of the brothers and through the dream of Paro. Yaakov had two of the dreams in the Torah. Only dreams, by the way, in the Torah are two of Yosef's and two of Yaakov's dreams. The only Jewish people that dream, sorry. There's also Paro's dreams, the butler's dreams, and Avimelech's dreams, and Lavan's dreams. But the only two Jews in the entire Torah that had dreams are Yaakov and Yosef. Zayadler, he went down to Mitzrayim, etc. Anyways, it continues. So, Yaakov saw Yosef as continuing his understanding of the mission, that it's not enough to seclude ourselves, and even though Avram did spread Hashem's name to everywhere, wherever he was, Yaakov recognized you have to go to the corners of the world, go to the dark places, not be afraid and hide from the darkness, but actually confront the darkness, and not be afraid that it's going to overpower you, but just go to those places and light a menorah, like we do on Hanukkah. The Rebbe's, we don't do like light in the comfort of our homes. We light by the window. We make sure that we go to we light giant menorahs in the darkest of places in the world, in Gaza, right, in Lebanon. We go to those places and we light up the darkness. And so Yaakov recognized that is the true mission, and that through Yosef will bring the purpose of creation into reality, and that's why he favored Yosef. That was the deeper idea of why he favored Yosef. If you want to get a little Kabbalistic, it gets really cool. We learned that Yaakov in the Sphira chart was Midas of Tiferet. Avram is Chesed on the right, Yitzchak is Gvur on the left, and Yaakov is the balance of Chesed and Gvur, which is Tiferet, which is on the middle, which is why it's Emes. It says Yaakov, the reason that the Tikon Emes Yaakov, that Yaakov continues and the continuity comes through Yaakov, is because only when you have the balance in the middle can you have Nitzchi, continuity. Where it gets really cool is that Yosef in the Spheros chart, even like in the Shpizin, Yosef, anyone know which sphere he is? He's the Midah of Yesod. Yesod. If I want to draw the sphere chart, can I borrow your pen for a moment? Sure. So let's see. We have Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Chesed Gvura Tiferes, Chesed Gvura Tiferes, Netzach Hod, and Yesod. So Yosef embodies Yesod. It says in many places. So here, let me show you. Thank you. So we have Avram, Yitzchak, right, left, Tiferes, Yaakov, Netzach and Hod, and then in the middle, right underneath, we have Yosef, Yesod. And so Yesod is actually directly under Tiferet. So if Yaakov in the Torah embodies Tiferet, Yosef directly beneath embodies Yesod. And just like Tiferet is the balance of Chesed and Gvura, it's compassion, it's giving through compassion, it's being able to know when to give, when not to give, and being able to have the emes, the fusion of outward expression of Chesed and restraining like Gvura. Yesod continues Tiferes, but while Tiferes is an emotive, it's an emotion of compassion, Yesod is the reproductive organ. It's in the body. This is the right arm, the left arm, the neck, or the heart, the right leg, or right leg, left leg. And this is the reproductive organ, male and female. That's where we take the potential of Tiferet, the potential of Tiferet, which balances like moving outwards, and that idea of what Yaakov wanted to do, and brings it into practical. So these are the three emotive spheros. These are the three practical spheros. There's the three intellectual spheros above, Chachma, Bina, Das, which I didn't even draw. Then we have the three emotive spheros. So it's like the potential of Yaakov was Tiferet, and when you take the potential and bring it into action, that's Yesod. And so Yosef was actually actualizing the potential of Yaakov. And so going back to what I said was that Yaakov, he embodied this idea of like moving outward and bringing Hashem's light into Haran, into the darkest place of the world. But even Yaakov, he stayed a shepherd. His job was to be a shepherd for all those years in Haran. So Yaakov kind of like embodied it, but not 100% fully. In fact, there's a verse I didn't bring down. It says that Yaakov was the flame and Yosef was the blazing fire. So he took that like potential and he brought it out into full flame. We said this about Dinah, by the way, and Leah, that Leah had the potential in small to influence Esav, but Dinah had it in full, because it says whatever yafa koach ben mikoach av, whatever the potential is in the parent, the child has it even greater. So a lot of times we feel like, and we shouldn't live through our children, because remember we said, the Rabbi Jacobson quoted that just like our children are flames of the menorah, we have no permission to use them. We sing, we have no permission to use them. So our children are not there to actualize our hidden potential, which is so tempting, right? We didn't get to do this. So I want my child to be the piano player because I gave up piano, right? And I do that. I gave up piano. I'm like, don't do what I did, right? But our children are not here to make us fix our mistakes or to give us nachas either. They're literally there for us to, what does it say? To see them, only to witness them and to reflect back to them and to see their beautiful potential and to look at them every time we see them, to see this tremendous Ein Sof potential of beauty, and to look at them that way even when they're messing up and they're doing the worst things ever. We look at them and we say, you are beautiful nonetheless. You are holy. You are Ein Sof. You are infinite. And especially when they're feeling like garbage or when they're doing all the wrong things, that we can still look at them and say, I see the light. The candle might be messed up, but the flame is exactly the same, and we can look at them and see that, and that's what brings out and reminds them, oh yeah, I am a flame, I am a piece of Ein Sof. Okay, I messed up. We all messed up. And now when I see and witness the flame that I have inside of me, I feel like I have a place to come back to. That was totally a tangent. But the idea was that our children are our children, though, whatever we have in a small potential, our children, just like the seed of the father is the potential, and then it expounds into a full child. We learn Kabbalistically that anything a parent has in potential, the child has in greater. All this to say that Yaakov had the beginning of the potential of taking the godliness and moving it from being secluded like the fathers before him, and like keeping it like by secluding ourselves from the world to retain our connection to Hashem. Yaakov began that journey of Vayetze, going down into Haran, and Yosef expounded on that and brought it all the way down into Yesod, into full fulfillment, into 100% fully by Yosef's entire life. Yosef felt that that was the most important thing. And when he told the brothers the dream, he was saying that I know your ideas are different. You think we have to stay a shepherd, but ultimately that will bow down to my idea. Those will succumb or be batzel to the truth, which is what Hashem wants us to be here for. They will all be nullified to the ultimate purpose, which is we're not here to worry about our own spiritual achievements. We put aside our own spiritual achievements to light up the darkness in the world around us. That's what we're ultimately here from. We don't have to be afraid of the darkness of the world, because if you are such a burning light, the darkness will have nowhere to go. And so the brothers, though, could never even accept that. And they said, this is so dangerous. This is going to cause so much dissimulation. We need to throw you in a pit. Like, this can't happen. We need to get rid of you before you ruin everything. And so they were afraid of that ideal, the idea of like, it was a godly battle. It was a battle of like, no, you're going to ruin our connection to Hashem. Like, this is evil. And so they were coming from a very holy place of like trying to snuff out this like dangerous idea of like, you can't go engage in the darkness in the world and engage with Goyim and go into business and do all those things. The temptations that are there, the evil that lies in the world is going to snuff out this light. We have to hold on to the light. We have to be shepherds. And so that was the deeper idea of this like the inner message of what was going on in this confrontation, in this battle. And now we fast forward 22 years later. And obviously we fast forward 22 years later, and what obviously Yosef comes out, the victor, his dreams were fulfilled. Yosef comes out and says, and they recognize suddenly, this whole thing happens. Now, if you go into the text, it gets really crazy. This text tells us that they didn't recognize him. This is like a very fundamental, deep Hasidic idea. It says that why do we have to know? Obviously, they didn't recognize him, because if they recognized him, they wouldn't have been afraid of. They would have known the whole time is Yosef. So the verse says that he recognized them, v'heim lo hekiruhu, and they didn't recognize him. There's very deep idea to this. I bring this up later when we in Kriyas Yamsuf. I don't know if you've ever heard that shiur, that the ocean didn't recognize the Jewish people and didn't split for them. Remember that shiur? And so similarly, and when it saw the bones of Yosef, it split. Anyways, that's a whole nother shiur. But here, the brothers didn't recognize him. What does that mean they didn't recognize him? There's a lot of commentaries, but Chassidut says that they couldn't recognize how it's possible for, even when he said, I am your brother, they said, it's not possible. You can't be holy, and I'm still Yosef. He said, Ani Yosef, I am still the same Yosef, that tzaddik, that learned with my father, that learned the deepest secrets of Torah with my father, that was a big tzaddik, kept all the Torah mitzvos. I'm still that same Yosef. I'm still your brother Yosef. And they said, that's not possible. We don't recognize that. How could you, the ruler of Egypt, involved in politics and money and business and entrepreneurship, how could you still be the tzaddik Yosef? They don't work together. They can't coexist. So they couldn't even see how you could be a tzaddik and be the same brother Yosef. So for them, it was impossible to recognize, because they were so distracted by the outside of Yosef, by what he was involved with, by the world, that they couldn't even look deeper and say that Yosef didn't compromise any of his values. And so if you go back to Yosef's path, we're going out to the world, conquering. Yosef was from the get-go. How does it describe Yosef in the Torah? By the way, the Torah spends more time describing Yosef than any other character in Moshe, Abraham, nobody. We have everything about Yosef, his childhood, his birth, how he cared about his appearance. It mentions a few times. So Yosef cared about his appearance. He cared about the outwardness. So Yosef from the get-go was a conqueror. He was a businessman. He was an entrepreneur. He was an innovator. He was really good with words. He was really careful of his outward appearance. We see this throughout Yosef's even when he speaks to his brothers, when he's a slave, right? He was so good at being a slave. He gets promoted. He's so good at, and even in jail, he's so good at being in jail that they promote him to the vice warden, to the warden of the prison. And so, but at the same time, we learn that Yosef is called Yosef HaTzadik, that he is the ultimate. That's the ultimate purpose. To be a tzaddik is not, it's easy to be a tzaddik when you're disengaged from the world. You're the tzaddik. You're the fulfillment of what we're here in this world for, when you can be involved in all those things, be in the business world, be involved in everything around you, and at the same time, he never compromised his commitment to Torah, mitzvahs, and to Hashem, and to his soul, even a little bit. In fact, what does Potiphar say? What was his success? About when Potiphar speaks about Yosef, it says, Shem Shemayim Shagur B'Piv. Whenever he would have success, Potiphar says he would say it's from Hashem. He never forgot. He was so involved in the business, and never for a moment did he think, it's me, it's my success, it's because I'm so handsome. He was like, no, it's all Hashem. He never forgot that. And those two opposites are really why we call him the dreamer, because they're so opposite. And we learn that what is God, the deepest idea of, because we're past Kislev, the month of dreams, actually, because today is the first day of Cheshvan, of Tevet. But dreaming, we learn, is a metaphor for Gullus. We're going to say, Shir Malos, B'shuv Hashem, Et Shivat Zion, when Hashem redeems Zion, we're going to say, Hayinu Kechalmim, we were like dreamers. Gullus is like a dream. The Rebbe says the deepest reason for this is that because only in a dream, you can have two opposites at the same time. Only in Gullus could we have two full opposites. We could be so godly, our neshama's on fire, letting them know, and a minute later, we're fully involved in things and physical possessions. We totally forget about it. And they could even be at the same time. I could be like, this donut's amazing, right? And also be godly at the moment. I could be watching something right on Netflix and then also be connecting it to Hashem at the same time, right? The two opposites are so crazy. The brothers are like, that's not possible, right? That's not even... I don't see how those two can coexist. That doesn't even make sense. They couldn't even recognize it. But Yosef was a dreamer whose neshama came. He's the one who brought about Gullus and Geula. He brought about going down into Egypt because he was one sold and brought everyone there. And he also brought about the redemption by bringing the famine and the end of the famine. So all of the Galus came about through Yosef, because only Yosef was a dreamer, because only in a dream could you have two opposites happen at the same time, right? Ever have a dream where you're like in two different places and they don't contradict, or you're two different people, or you're talking to somebody and they're both like the same person? In a dream, it makes sense. And so Yosef's soul came from the level of dreams, from the level of galut, from this deep galut, comes from a deeper place than Geula, was able to fathom these two opposites. And Yosef was able to reconcile and be like, yeah, of course, I could be involved in the world and be godly and be committed to my neshama and not compromise any of my values, because his neshama came from that place. And only through Yosef's vision did he empower us in the darkest galiyot to follow, like now, to be able to do the same. And so that's why we're called the children of Yosef, and Tehillim we're called Noe Katzon Yosef. We'll get to that momentarily, but we get that empowerment. We learn that through Yosef having that ability to retain both, he bequeathed it to all of us. And we all have that ability through this. And Yaakov recognized this right away. That's why Yaakov favored Yosef. He said that only Yosef's approach to being fully immersed in the world and not being fazed by them and not being overpowered by them in the least is capable of sustaining the Jewish nation throughout the next 3,000 years of long dark galus. Only that approach is able to sustain us. The approach of the Shvatim is going to get us nowhere, which is, by the way, why it says that Yaakov's mitaso was shlema, because Yaakov recognized that he went down to Haran, and because he raised children in the darkness and fortified them to counter it, his children all remained tzaddikim. But Yitzchak, who sheltered his sons, wasn't giving them ended up having a Yishmael, and Avraham ended up having an Esav. Avram had an Ishmael, Yitzchak had an Esav. Because if they raise them sheltered, you don't give them the tools that they need to fortify themselves, to have strong values even in the darkest places. We're all born into Galus, which is, by the way, why we bench our children to be like Ephraim and Menashe, because they were born in Galus. We want to bench our children that even if you're born into the darkest places, you'll still have that connection. That's a little bit later, but that was really that source of that strife. Did I miss anything? Oh, so the brothers was not recognizing that that's possible. Mm-hmm. And when Yosef said, I am still Yosef, this is where it gets. You're still Yosef, you're still a tzaddik. They saw this fire. He revealed his fire to them. He revealed his core. He's like, I'm fully committed to Hashem and Torah. And they were so filled, I forget which commentator says it, they were so embarrassed. What did they think? Why were they even filled with more shame after he said, I'm Yosef, your brother? They said that if you could be such a holy tzaddik now, we saw what a tzaddik was, and you were in Mitzrayim, how we are overcome with regret that we took 22 years of your life. If you were such a tzaddik here in Mitzrayim, imagine what a tzaddik you would have been had you stayed in Eretz Yisrael and learned what the secrets, learned Torah with our father. You would have been the greatest light of the world. And this is where we get to like the climax. Yosef's answer to them is as follows. What does he say? He says, no, you're getting it all wrong. Ani Yosef, and the commentators ask this. He says, I am Yosef Od Avichai, and the brothers can't come near him. They're so embarrassed. And then he comes closer to them because they're so ashamed, and he says, Ani Yosef, Asher Macharta Mosid L'Mitzrayim, that you sold me. If he's trying to comfort them, why is he pointing, saying that you sold me to Mitzrayim? He should say, I am Yosef, Hashem sent me here, right? What is that idea? He says, no, don't feel bad. He saw that they were feeling bad. He was like, oh wow, you're a tzaddik. You could have been an even greater tzaddik if you had left. What did we do? We made the biggest mistake of our lives. What did we do to you? And he says, no, you're getting it all wrong. I am Yosef Asher. And this is Sfas Emes says something crazy. I heard it from Rabbi Bayo Jacobson. He says, Asher, just like by the Luchos, when he says, Asher Yasher Kochacha, Asher Shibarta, the Medrash says, Yasher Kochacha, Asher Shibarta, that you broke the Luchos, it was a good thing that you did it. He says, Asher Macharta, using the word that you sent me, it's Yasher Koach. I am who I am now, the tzaddik, because you sent me. Only because I went through what I went through, and because I went down to Mitzrayim, that's why I am Yosef, the light you see right now. It was good that you sent me. Hashem wanted that to happen. I am only who I am because you sent me to Mitzrayim. And that is like ultimate, like bringing it together. Let me read you make sure I got the words right. By the way, you see this again. He says, when Paro asks you, what do you do? Later on, when he says, I want to settle you, he says, we are shepherds, right? We deal with the animals. Since we're little, and also now, also our fathers, he recognized that Tell them that you are shepherds. You need to be isolated in Goshen in order that you will, because Mitzrayim is so evil, you need to stay be shepherds and like be ro'ei sons. Even when you're in Mitzrayim, you could be in the darkest place, have your space of a yeshiva, have a haven, have your shul, have a place where you can go and be in seclusion to like remember and reconnect to your source, to remember who you are. Then you go down to Mitzrayim and bring Kedusha and holiness and light up the Mitzrayim. But it says Yaakov actually brought so much bracha to Mitzrayim, but only because he also had a space of Goshen. So it's not like the brothers' ideology was fully wrong. They needed to have, Yaakov reiterated, you are supposed to be shepherds. Not always though. The Rebbe was like, do kolel for a year or two, not your whole life. You have to do kolel though for 1 or 2 years, because then where do you get the strength to be connected and to be a fire? So you need to do kolel for 1 or 2 years when you get married. But that's it. You can't spend the rest of your life secluded. So you have your eyes, you have to have both at the same time. So the brother's ideology wasn't false. You need to be secluded at some times. You have davening a few times a day. You have your sacred learning where you're disconnected from everything else. But then it's for the purpose of engaging, of bringing that light into the rest of the world. It's not for the purpose of staying secluded your whole life, because then you're literally missing the point of why you're existing in this world. And so there's a space for that. There's a Goshen, but you don't just stay in Goshen. You bring that light everywhere. You bring that light, you permeate that light everywhere in the darkness. I want to just find you the pasuk where he says Asher, because it's such a powerful verse. Here.
All this stuff is just in her.
Vayomer Yosef el achav, ani Yosef ha'od avichai, v'lo yochlu echad la'anos lo ki nivhalu mapanav. They couldn't answer him. They were so shocked and remorseful. Vayomer Yosef. So then what does he say? Geshu nailai, come closer. Vayigashu, like Vayigash. Again, this is the closeness, right? I love this, like Vayigash connection. Vayomer ani Yosef, I'm Yosef achichem, your brother. Asher mechartem osim Mitzrayim, that you sold Mitzrayim. Asher, though, because you sold me. I am Yosef, your brother. Why am I this Yosef? Why am I Yosef the Tzaddik? Because mechartem osim Mitzrayim, because you sold me to Mitzrayim. You think, and then he says, V'ata. This is the message, by the way. One of the messages of this week's parsha we can't skip. V'ata al te'atzvu. Don't be sad. V'al yichar beinechem ki mechartem. Don't regret. Don't be angry at yourselves. Ki mechartem osi, that you sold me. Heina kir ki lemichya. Because Hashem is the one who sent me here to be a life source for you, if not for me being here. So this is all planned by Hashem. Don't be angry at yourself. Hashem planned all this in order for me. I'm not angry at you. I know that Hashem wanted me to be here in order that I could be lemichya. I can be a source of life for you, not just you. Now we learn this is a metaphor for all of Am Yisrael and Galus. That this is for Hashem sent me ahead so that I can be this is where it gets really deep, by the way. The Galus itself was like brought about. Hashem sent it so that even the darkness itself, later on, you're going to be in Galus, now us, right? 30,000 years. Hashem sent me lemichya, to be, how do we translate the word lemichya? To save your lives, to be a source of life for you when you're in Galus. So that when you have to go down to Egypt in Galus, you realize that the whole going down, the whole Galus came from Hashem to begin with. It was all from Yosef to begin with. It was all from Kedusha. So even though you're going down into Galus, you have this reminder that it was all planned by Hashem. It was all, really, it's Hashem. It looks like Vayigash. It looks like Yosef, the king of Mitzrayim. But if you look deeper, I am Yosef the Tzaddik. Galus might look like it's the darkness. It's the nations of the world that are the ones hurting us. But if we look a little deeper, it's Hashem. If we look deeper, even the viceroy, even that which comes to antagonize us, Yosef who antagonized them, who took Binyamin, look a little deeper, it was never your enemy. It was all just a facade. It was really Yosef the whole time. And it was set up in that way so we can literally look Galus in the eye and say, you're just a facade. It's not the nations of the world doing anything without Hashem planning for it to be there for a higher purpose. We are here so we can take out this tremendous wealth through being in Galus. And Yosef says, I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't go through what I went through right now. And I'm going to go back to say something really deep right now, that in our neshama, what we all have this Yosef inside of us, Yosef the dreamer. And we all also have a point in our lives where we want to throw the Yosef into the pit, where we want to bury it. We want to bury and banish and sell and get rid of Yosef. So we start off our lives with having this dreamer inside of us, this like child who's like, I could dream of being everything I want to be. I want to change the world. I want to be a light. I'm going to have this and that. I'm going to be the prime minister. I'm going to be the president. I'm going to make the difference. I'm going to bring Mashiach, right? I'm going to like change the entire world. I'm going to be this and that, right? When you ask kids they want to be an astronaut and go to space. They can achieve the world. That's the dreamer inside of us. I dream of being everything. And then we're faced with the harsh reality of life. So the brother selling Yosef is actually a story that we do to ourselves. It's actually something that we often do to ourselves. We reach a point in our life where we are so discouraged by these dreams. We're like, these are just nonsense dreams. They're never going to happen. They're not real. You're never going to achieve your dreams. It's just making you feel bad what you didn't do. You're just making us like, let me bury those dreams, right? Someone comes out, another voice inside of us or outside of us that tells us those dreams are not a reality. You can never do all that. The harsh reality of like limitations of this world, of all of the darkness is like, you'll never do all that, right? Like there's a certain point where the child is like, no longer saying that they want to be an astronaut and go to outer space and change the whole world and like be everything they want to be, because there is like something inside of them that it's like, not only like am I never gonna, the harsh reality of like maybe I'll never be able to do that, or there's so much blocking me from doing that. It's like it gets to the point where not only am I jaded, but I'm also like, so first comes like, okay, I'm jaded, like I'm never gonna be able to do all that. Someone's voice is like, yeah, that's not a reality. You know, you're gonna have to go to school for 1,000 years and we're not gonna pay for that and blah, 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 right? And all of the like that like desire to light up the whole world comes crashing down, but then it starts to be painful to us. It's like, I don't wanna hear your dreams anymore. Just go into the pit. You're making life hard for me. You're making me struggle, because now I'm like seeing what I could be, and I'm so frustrated at my dreams that are not being fulfilled. So I wanna just take those dreams and bury them and not thinking about them. And I stop talking about those dreams. And so the brother selling Yosef is really something that we often do in ourselves constantly, to our children, to ourselves, to the Yosef inside of us, to that dreamer, to that tzaddik, that holy like fire inside of us. We just bury it. We're like, forget it. Like it's more painful to have the dreams in my face that I didn't keep than to just bury them and pretend I don't have them anymore and be like, oh, I don't dream that anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. And so burying those dreams, wanting to throw them away, is something we often do. Mm-hmm. And now comes Yosef, where he's saying, this is where it gets really deep. We're like, we really want to recognize that like to not bury those dreams, and even, to have those dreams, to have that fusion of two opposites is so powerful, right? Obviously, and the brothers are so regretful. So now we come later and we're like, wait, why did I bury all those dreams? What I could have done? And this goes back to like the takeaway from here. It's like if only I didn't do this, if only I didn't do that. We often ask that question, like, if only I would have born in a different family, if only I had more money, if only I could have done this, if only I could have had a different job, if only 10 years ago I would have remembered this, if only I would have invested, if only I would have bought then, right? We have so many if onlys, and Yosef is saying like the klipa of if only, the gullus of if only should be like, no, not, we change if only to asher, to only because I made all those mistakes am I who I am today. So we're so full. I wake up every day full of if only yesterday I would have done this, if only last year, if only 10 years ago. Oh, I am so full of if onlys, literally every day. And every day I look at pictures, I'm like, oh my gosh, if only then, if only I would have my past self. And no, and Yosef is like, stop saying if only. He's saying to himself, to the brothers, but also to the brothers inside of us, to this, what do you mean if only? Because the brothers are filled with like, if only we wouldn't have sold you, if only we wouldn't have buried you. So now I'm like, oh, I buried the Yosef inside of me. I buried my dreams. If only I would have done that. And how do we answer that? He's like, stop with your if only. It's not if only you didn't bury your dreams. He says, asher macharten osi. Asher, only because you sold me and you buried me and you pushed me away, only because I went through all of that am I who I am today. Only because, and it's really in this story we see it, it's like only because you sold me did I come down to Mitzrayim, and now we have this Yosef who's now saving the world from the famine and bringing about this koach to get through Galut. Only because you did that. So like, thank God you did that. And so stop saying if only and change it to only because. Only because I made that mistake. Only because I buried my Yosef inside of me. That's not. It wasn't a mistake. It was only because of that. And so we can re-examine every moment of our lives and say, only because of those mistakes I made, am I who I am today? Do I have the potential to be what I am, to be exactly? And Yosef was able to recognize that every mistake that they made wasn't them, it was from Hashem. So yes, there was free choice involved, but still, that plan was directly from Hashem for all this to happen. He was constantly able to look for and say, I may not see it right now, but I know throughout the way that this is from Hashem, that Hashem made this happen, even though there was a lot of if onlys along the way. And so, I don't know, what do you guys think? What's the, I was really trying to sit with this wanting to bury that, dreamer inside of us, because we're so afraid of, we're so uncomfortable or sad by the facing the harsh reality of life and the reality we live in versus the dreams that we wish we would have had. And if we can move forward at that, we say, right, what can we say to that Yosef inside of us? We say wow, those dreams are possible, right? And even if right now I'm not achieving them, having that Yosef to show us that vision, to show us what we could be, to show us that is so valuable. We don't have to feel like if only, I'm not doing it, I'm not fulfilling my dream. That's okay, right? Having dreams is amazing, even if we're not there yet. And so being able to tell our children that, I think one of the takeaways for me is like that voice that we're also tempted to, like we repeat that voice that someone told us or our inner voice to our children, that if our children have that, be like, yeah, that's you can do all that and more. You're infinite. You are a light. Like to stop ourselves when we're on the tip of saying like we want to bring our kids down like to reality so they're not disappointed, but we're ending up like helping them bury their Yosef. So we don't want to bring them down to reality. We say, yeah, those dreams are amazing. You can totally do that, right? I will support you in that. You can be anything you want to be. Having those dreams is amazing. Let's talk about it. What will that look like? Explore those dreams with them rather than helping them face the harsh reality and wanting to bury that Yosef. So we can say that to our children. We can say that to us as well. We have a dream and we have like this big vision. We don't need to bring ourselves back to reality. We need to say, what would that look like? Let me picture that. That would be so beautiful. That would be so amazing. What would the world look like? And we could actually manifest that, and through thinking about how I would be if I was that person, right? And then try and bring that into my life and bring some of that dreams into my reality. How would I look like if I was fulfilling that dream? And so talking about that dream, which is what Yaakov did. He's like, talk about the dream, save that dream, treasure it. Yaakov was the one who saw that dream, and then it ended up happening because someone saw that dream and said, let's talk about that. What would that look like? That's amazing. Let us speak about that dream and not necessarily need to bury it and not necessarily, because it comes from a good place of wanting to like prevent hurt, but ultimately that doesn't serve us. So if I didn't tie anything up, let me just see. Any questions I didn't tie up yet?
Wasn't Yaakov, wasn't Yaakov also threatened by the dream?
No.
By Yosef's dream?
No.
Of the bowing down? Didn't he say?
No, because it was like understanding that it was to the idea of what Yosef believed. Yaakov also believed in that. He said, Yosef's going to take my reality of like beginning to bring godliness to the darkest places and actually do it. Yosef was literally steeped in Egypt as far as Egyptian culture he could be steeped in, and yet he brought Kedusha there. And so Yaakov was like waiting for it. It says, Aviv Shamar Sadavar. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I read something that said if your dreams aren't scaring you, then they're not big enough.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. You should be scared of your dreams, and you should hold space to be like, let me hear more. Let's hear more about that, right? That's like what dreaming is. Like, that's amazing, right? Let me hear more. I wanted to end off with the idea of Yosef forgiving, that we learn in Chassidut that the Yosef, how he reacted to his brothers, this is like a very powerful, practical takeaway, that the brothers sold him, wanted to kill him, and how does he repay them? He greets them and he showers them with gifts, each one according to their needs. The little ones with the food that they needed and more than they needed, and clothing. And we said we learned from this that we can repay those who come to harm us with good. Ligmol achayam tovos, to repay those who want to hurt us with positive. We can learn from Yosef. I have friends that are on a way higher level than me that I learned from them that when they, let's say, have someone acting badly to them, instead of wishing bad for them, they daven for them. And so they'll be like, let's say my landlord is like trying to raise my rent double and kick me out. I'll daven for my landlord. She literally davens every day. My landlord will be so wealthy and win the lottery that he won't have to raise my rent. Or I'll daven that the people hurting me will be healed and be healthy and be happy and be joyful and won't be jealous of me. Or I'll daven that they'll be so successful that they will be healed. So we daven and we repay those. And that's a really, it says, by the way, Yaakov asher padas Avraham, that when we can't redeem the Avram, which is the chesed, and we feel like, how could I love a person who's doing such bad to me? It says Yaakov redeems, that Yaakov is compassion, tiferet. And so the way to redeem trapped love, when I can't love someone because they're doing really bad things to me, you have compassion for them. And so compassion redeems and frees your trapped love. And so when you have compassion for them, you say, they're suffering so much to do this to me. Let me daven for their healing. Let me daven for their goodness. Let me daven that they have all the good in the world, that they'll be so fulfilled, be kind to me. And so we have this power, it says, from Yosef. Yosef fed this to us. Yosef sustained us through food. It says he was the one who nourished and gave food. Also in the nourishment of the food, he nourished us with the ability, every one of us, to be able to repay those who act badly to us with kindness, with more and more kindness. And it frees us. It makes us a better person. And it's a very hard thing to do. And so Yosef, and we dive into Hashem, we say, no hey katson Yosef. Hashem should treat us the same way Yosef treated others. That when we don't do so good for Hashem, we ask Hashem to be like Yosef, to treat us like Yosef treats his flock, and to repay our negativity with more kindness. Hashem, give us more good, and then we'll be gooder to you, right? Gooder to you. And that's what the Medrash says, that when we ask Hashem to lead us like Yosef, that's what we're doing. And the reason that Yosef was able to do this is because he was able to look at the essence of the brothers and see that the essence of everything, and when when the brothers were doing bad to him, he says, the essence of it is that Hashem wants this to happen to me. And so I'm not angry at you for doing it to me, because I'm able to see that this is exactly Asher. This is where I needed to be. This had to happen to me. And you were just the messengers Hashem picked. It would have happened. Hashem needed this to happen. So you just did what Hashem wanted you to do. Hashem made you do this. And the essence of your core is to only do good, and is to only want to do good. And so he said that there's even the essence of there was no like evil intention. And so Yosef had the unique ability to see the deeds of others from the perspectives of the essence or the neshama, where they're fully pure. Where at their essence, their neshama was just doing what Hashem wanted them to do. And he gave us the power to do the same. So when we see someone doing bad, we could see the essence of their soul as their potential, right? That really they're doing what Hashem is guiding them to do. And we could focus on, and that's what the Rebbe says. It's a very, very deep level. So we focus on, you're just the messenger. Hashem wanted this to happen. Your neshama is just doing what Hashem guided you to do. And, that ultimately, meaning that, yes, it might look bad now, but deep down your neshama knows this is going to be for the good, and that's why your neshama is causing this to happen. You might not be aware, you might think you're doing something bad, but your neshama knows that this is going to bring me good ultimately, and that ultimately I'm going to be who I am because of the darkness, because of what happened to me, because of where I was at. I think we'll end there today. Thank you for joining, thank you for watching. I bless all of us to be able to see the beauty of our neshama, to be able to have space for both opposites, to be able to be able to light up the darkness and know at the same time that we're here from Hashem, and that Hashem is this is all a facade, and it's really what Hashem's plan to bring us to a higher place. Chaim, thank you for joining, and see you next week.